So I want to be really careful about this segment. What I want to do is I want to steelman or make the strongest possible left-wing argument against broad lockdowns and stay-at-home orders as a way to deal with coronavirus. And I want to be really clear. There are lots of really bad arguments on the right against lockdowns. What would a left-wing case against lockdowns look like? That's what I want to answer today. So as a reminder, bad arguments against lockdowns from the right include things like only old people will die and we don't really need to worry about that. That's a bad argument against lockdowns. Stay-at-home orders are government tyranny or like Nazis or whatever. No, that's wrong, and that is a bad argument against lockdowns. The left wants people to be unemployed. No, that's a very bad argument against lockdowns. Stay-at-home orders don't save anyone. No, that's a bad argument against lockdowns. The economy is simply more important than people's lives, or we should be willing to sacrifice grandma, or lockdowns are merely meant to hurt Donald Trump's reelection chances. These are all terrible arguments against lockdowns and stay-at-home orders. I think you get it. There are lots of really bad right-wing arguments against stay-at-home orders. Let me present maybe a more realistic left-wing case against the full lockdowns that some places have been doing. So on the left, we recognize as a guiding principle, essentially, that in American society and in the American economy, it is the working class, the working poor, the lower middle class, blue collar workers. It's all these groups who are more vulnerable, who are more precariously sitting on the edge between being able to pay for their living expenses and not. And they are the first to get the shaft from our economic system, for lack of a better term. And at the same time, it is those exact people who are most hurt by broad stay-at-home orders. It's not really the white collar workers. It's not the lawyers. It's not the people who can work from home. It's not brand managers and management consultants. The people most hurt by stay-at-home orders are restaurant workers, grocery store employees, agricultural workers, delivery drivers, people in transportation, Uber and Lyft, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are folks who have less power to begin with in our economy. They have less of a financial cushion to get through a calamity, and who either lose their jobs or have to work in dangerous conditions or see their hours reduced without extra pay, thanks to the stay-at-home orders. So if we think about who is most hurt by a broad lockdown, it's the very people that we on the left have prioritized, as it should be, because they are the most taken advantage of. Now, at the same time, even though we've had broad stay-at-home orders in many places, we've completely failed to actually protect the people most at risk: older folks, people in nursing homes, long-term care facilities. Here in Massachusetts, at one point, half of all deaths were in nursing homes. The average age of death here in Massachusetts, as of yesterday, is 82 years of age. I assume that's median. I'm not sure how it's being calculated, but it's been widely reported by health authorities. 82 is the average age of death. We have failed to protect nursing homes, and this is happening nationally. There are some states, I told you yesterday, the day before, even hiding nursing home deaths, which understates the problem even more. We've not done enough testing, which from day one would have been a fantastic way to identify more cases, quickly isolate people. We didn't invest in fever clinics, which is a colloquial term, basically places for people who have the disease but are not super sick that they need to be in a hospital, places to isolate like South Korea has done while they recover. So if you want to make a left-wing case against broad lockdowns, the argument would be, we could have skipped such a broad lockdown. We could have stayed much more open in terms of restaurants and some other places. Certainly large sporting events, concerts had to be canceled, but we could have kept more stuff open, could have kept it open with mandatory masks. We could have much earlier spent way more money on safeguarding older folks, long-term care and nursing home facilities, and way more money should have been spent early on testing from the beginning. So this is not so much about blame. I mean, there's blame to go around. The federal government has a huge amount of blame. State governments have failed in many cases to protect older populations. This particular segment is not about blame. We know there's plenty to go around, but there are things that could have been done. Now, I want to be really clear. I'm not falling for this entire children and young people aren't affected by the virus. We are seeing children affected to some degree, some with a Kawasaki-like illness. We are seeing, younger adults to some degree affected, but the mortality rate for people under 65, particularly those without pre-existing conditions or comorbidities, is infinitesimally small. And, we hear about healthy 42-year-old died of coronavirus. Yeah, but understand that those numbers are close to zero. And this is not like the flu in total, but sometimes you will get an unexplained death from the flu in a young, healthy person. Sometimes it will happen. It is a tiny, tiny fraction. So isolation, stay at home for older folks, of course, way more testing, of course, fever clinics for sick people, of course, close large events, of course, masks, etc. But there is a case that one could make that we could have, if we were more competently led at the beginning, we could have kept more things open in a way that would have directly helped the most vulnerable workers in the economy while changing the total risk very little. We could have avoided a lot of economic destruction. Now, that is me steelmanning a left-wing case against lockdowns. Do I literally believe it 100%? Of course not. Of course not. One example, lots of younger people live with older people. So if you want to keep the young restaurant worker employed, but their grandparents safe, and they live together, how do you do it, right? So this doesn't literally work in all cases. But I want to hear your thoughts. And the point that I'm making is left-wing skepticism of a total and complete stay-at-home is okay. The right-wing skepticism and attacks on the guidelines are ridiculous, and they're wrong, and they're laughable. There is a sensible conversation to have about how it could have been handled differently, and it may be relevant for when wave 2 happens, if we have a break between wave 1 and wave 2. But we've got to actually think it through, and that's what I'm trying to do with you right here. Let me know what you think. I'm on Twitter at @dpakman. Remember, we have a daily hour podcast that you can get on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and all of your favorite podcast apps. Make sure to sign up for it and let me know your thoughts on Twitter, where I am at @dpakman. One of our sponsors, NordVPN, is giving you 70% off a 3-year plan, which comes out to just a little over $3 a month. And you'll get an extra month free when you go to nordvpn.com/DavidPakman, or just go to their site and use the coupon code DavidPakman. It's 2020. There is really no reason not to be using a VPN. Not using a VPN means you are not taking your internet safety seriously. I use NordVPN almost any time I'm using the internet. It hides your IP address when you're browsing online, keeps you safe from hackers, keeps websites from tracking your browsing activity. Many advantages, and NordVPN is the most trusted VPN in the game. They don't log your internet activity like many other VPNs do. Their servers are super fast, and you can even use it on your phone. NordVPN is giving you 70% off a 3-year plan. That's just over $3 a month, plus an extra month free when you go to nordvpn.com/DavidPakman. I've put a link right underneath the video, or just go to their website and use the coupon code DavidPakman.